Hi everybody, Robin here, back again with more news. Last week, Mercedes-Benz revealed the Mercedes-AMG CLE 53. This is the first AMG version of the all-new Mercedes-Benz CLE 300 4MATIC and CLE 450 4MATIC that the Stuttgart brand introduced in July of this year. And it replaces both the C-Class and E-Class coupes, which go out of production after the 2023 model year. And while that's a shame, it's not a surprise. SUVs continue to dominate the marketplace, leaving little room for any kind of car, let alone two-door coupes. Speaking of, the CLE is the only two-door hardtop that Mercedes-Benz sells, other than the mega AMG GT sports car, of course. Mercedes claims that this new coupe will have the agility of a C-Class, but the interior space of an E-Class. And that may be, but it's the size of an E-Class. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions on the screen right now for you to see. For the AMG CLE 53, the agility comes courtesy of some AMG specific gear, like AMG ride control suspension, which includes adaptive shock absorbers and rear axle steering. AMG also plays with the chassis fundamentals. Compared to the standard CLE, you get wider tracks both front and rear, 2.3 inches in front and a full 3 inches wider in the rear. Finally, the standard wheel on the 53 is a 19-inch, not an 18-inch on the 300, and you have options for 20s. Oh, and AMG added a unique front grille for good measure. Under the hood of the 53 lies a turbocharged 3-liter inline-6 engine, which is a fantastic configuration to work with. And this engine has a couple of really interesting electric tricks up its sleeve. Like all CLEs, the 53 does get the integrated starter generator, or ISG, which is a belt-driven motor that does help power the engine at low engine speeds. It provides up to 23 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. That is, of course, a 48-volt system and does make this CLE a mild hybrid. But you also get something called an electric auxiliary compressor, which aids the standard turbocharger and increases peak boost by 5.8 psi, giving you 22 psi peak boost in total. Mercedes says that this electric auxiliary compressor runs almost continuously and adds torque through a wider RPM range, and it also allowed for a larger turbocharger to be used without adding lag. All in all, you get 443 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque, and you get 443 pound-feet of torque as well in 12-second intervals when you use the overboost button. Finally, that peak torque is available between 2200 and 5000 RPM, so a 2800 RPM ratio range and a pretty high level to still have torque peak, 5000 RPM. That's really nice. It also comfortably beats the CLE 450's, also turbocharged 3-liter inline-6, which makes 375 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And it absolutely dominates over the CLE 300's turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder, which makes 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. The CLE 53's 443 horsepower is channeled through a 9-speed automatic transmission, and just like all other CLEs, this is all-wheel drive. But the 53 will have a drift mode, Mercedes promises, for a bit of rear-wheel drive only shenanigans. Inside, the 53 is much like its non-AMG CLE brethren, with a 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster and an 11.9-inch center console touchscreen. The 53 will stand out, however, with an AMG flat-bottom steering wheel and sportier seats. When will this new coupe arrive? Mercedes says the standard CLEs, the 300 and 450 4MATICs, should arrive early 2024. I have a feeling that might mean early spring of 2024, and that means that this 53 is probably not going to be with us until more like the summer of 2024, which very well could mean that this will have a 2025 model year designation. And since that's still a bit into the future, Mercedes has not announced any kind of pricing, but because of its size and everything else, I expect it to come in a little bit more than the E-Class sedan. That being the case, I expect the CLE 300 to start somewhere in the low 60s, and if the CLE 53 also costs a few more grand than the sedan version, that puts its starting price in the mid 80s. Yeah, not cheap. But it's also very nice to know that Mercedes-Benz still wants to offer us a coupe version to play with and make it a pretty darn sporty one to boot. Based on how nice the E-Class sedan felt to me when I got to review it recently, this has the potential to be a brilliant weekend cruiser, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford it. Okay, that's all I have for now. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.